Hello everybody, today I'm watching The Phantom Island of Google Maps by Mapmen.
Today's episode is about things which appear to exist, but which don't. Welcome to Mapmen. I'm the men, and here's the map. Mapman, Mapman, Mapman.
Many years ago, being an explorer was the best job in the world.
The perks were obvious. Months at sea, far from loved ones, with a good chance you might starve to death.
But these days, there's no...
Now, just before this keeps going, I've been on Google Maps many times, like most people, and I often see just very weird spots that don't make any sense. I'm assuming this is just going to be another one of those.
such thing as an explorer.
And what do you want to be when you grow up?
An explorer.
Well, you can't because of Google Earth. Satellite technology was the death of discovery, as new aerial images...
Too late for exploring. Pretty much everything has been discovered.
What was what?
Go back a bit.
But it's just ocean.
There, that black smudge.
Huh. Something in the sea has been censored.
Oh, my mistake. This is the pre-2012 Google map. In the up-to-date one, it's just empty ocean.
Wait, that's an even bigger mystery.
It's time to do some research. I've just read a Wikipedia summary of this incredibly boring book.
Was it something that Google Maps
Turns out this
actually
is the location
censored?
of an island discovered by Captain Cook in 1774.
Or was there actually an island there?
Doing what he did best, looking out for land either small enough to be a crash hazard or big enough to colonise.
And he succeeded, successfully spotting a small and previously unknown sandy island. In a say-what-you-see naming tradition befitting a man associated with Australia, he named it
Sandy Island.
Sandy Island went on to appear on lots of maps, right up until 2012.
Oh,
But it oughtn't have, because it turns out Sandy Island has never and never has existed.
Sandy Island is what's known as a...
I assumed it would be an island that used to exist, but because it was like really low, it disappeared due to the rising ocean levels. But apparently it just doesn't exist.
An island that's marked on...
Has existed.
Sandy Island is what's known as a phantom island. An island that's marked on maps and believed to be real, but which was never actually there.
So if there was nothing there, why did Captain Cook think there was? And why did it stay on maps for so long? And how did this mistake go uncorrected for so many hundreds of years right into the age of satellites?
The best way
No
to
one
answer
bothered
that
to
is by
check,
looking at
probably.
lots of famous examples of phantom islands throughout history.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, if someone told me there was an island in a random place that's small and just full of sand and nothing else, I'd be like, sure, okay, I don't care. Should I check if it's real? Probably. Do I really care though? No, because it's not like it's anything worth mentioning. Probably wasn't even worth wasting the time to look for it. Until they finally found out with Google Maps that, oh shit, there actually is just nothing there.
History, each with their own explanations. And thankfully, I've made a list.
So have I. I'll start.
Reason number one, sailors often got lost.
The sea is big, with very few landmarks. So, back when they didn't have reliable navigation
75%
systems,
of the Earth
or
is covered
fancy
with
boats,
water.
or fresh fruit, you can understand how, on a cloudy and very stormy night, it wasn't easy to find your way to Kenya.
Because it was so hard to know exactly where you were, sailors often found land where they weren't expecting it.
A great example of this is Pepys Island.
Pepys Island.
If it doesn't exist, I can pronounce it how I want. In 1683, Admiral William Cowley, on a ship called the Bachelor's Delight, was just off the coast of South America when he, inverted commas, discovered, inverted commas, so-called Pepys Island. Cowley was delighted with the find and wrote at length about his great discovery.
The island has a pleasant aspect. There were a large number of birds. We killed as many as we needed for food. They were quite tasty.
Pepys Island appeared on 110 maps over the following century, despite no one but Cowley ever catching a glimpse of it.
Many sailors tried to find Pepys Island, including Captain Cook, but no one ever managed it. In the 19th century, historians looked at Cowley's extensive descriptions and sketches of...
You know, to be honest, with something like this, I would say there's a chance maybe he just saw South America or a different island, but he was like, you know what? This seems new. So he wrote it down as something completely different. I can see that happening. I mean, if I was sailing, think about it. They didn't have Google Maps or anything like that. They probably didn't even have regular maps. Well, they did, just they weren't accurate. So if you have an inaccurate map, you suddenly spot a landmass, you're like, shit, this must be new. Or maybe he was just hallucinating. That's also possible.
Pepys Island, and noticed that they had a striking similarity with the Falklands, 280 miles further south.
Cowley had been in the Falkland Islands all along, and Pepys was finally pooped.
So he just saw a different island.
Reason number two,
My turn.
Reason number two, a trick of the light.
Not all phantom islands are a result of navigational error. Even when sailors knew exactly where they were, they might not have known exactly what they were looking at. In 1821, Captain William Elliot spotted an island with high, mountainous land between Australia and South America. He named it Emerald Island.
So, if there was nothing there, then what not on Earth was he looking at?
Because he was in such a cold part of the world, Elliot had likely fallen victim to a special kind of mirage. Normally, things like
So
this
he is
pack of sea
delusional.
ice, which are straight ahead, appear to be straight ahead.
Hallucinating,
But when
kinda.
a temperature inversion occurs, with cold air on top of hot air, a duct can form which distorts the light's path, meaning this pack of sea ice now appears to be high and mountainous land, which is precisely what Elliot said he saw.
These mirages are known as Fata Morganas, and as these terrifying pictures of floating boats prove, could be very convincing.
Non-existent Emerald Island
Holy
features
Terrifying pictures of floating boats prove could be very convincing.
Non-existent Emerald Island
actually
featured
looks like
boldly
they're
on maps
floating.
for almost 100 years, partly because nobody could be bothered to sail all the way back here just to check.
I think that's what I said before about Sand Island. Why would you bother looking to confirm if a tiny island that has nothing on it is even real? Because I wouldn't. Why? It's a waste of time, and you can't even do anything with the island because it's so tiny. It's useless. So what's the point in even looking for it to confirm? There's no point. These days, obviously, you can do it easily because Google Maps and shit, but back then, wasn't worth it. Waste of time and resources.
Is real, is really there, and is land that isn't an island.
One example of... Oh, we have to... Right, where were we? Ah, yes, things that weren't islands.
The name California historically refers to a long stretch of the west coast of North America, only the top half of which ended up as part of the USA. The bottom half, or Baja California, is this long peninsula dangling off Mexico.
When the early Spanish explorers landed here in the 1600s, the extraordinary longness of what we now know
They
as
probably
the
thought it
Gulf
was
of
an
California
island.
meant that they never made it all the way up to the connecty bit up the top, and made the understandable assumption that California was an island.
The island of California appeared on many of the first maps of the newly discovered continent, and this now famous map mistake went on to appear on thousands of maps right up until the end of the 18th century.
Did it really take them
Oh,
that
it's even
long
on the
to
map in the
figure out
back.
it wasn't an island?
No, the island had been disproven several times by several explorers, but the mistake persisted on maps for so many years because people wanted it to exist.
The explorers named the fictional island of California after the even more fictional Island of California from a popular 16th century romantic novel about an island populated entirely by Amazonian women.
In an era where European high society
Seriously?
were using maps for decoration rather than navigation, it made artistic, if not geographic sense, to include the famous island that well-read people wanted to see.
I mean, to be fair, it does look good on a
A
map.
surprisingly large number of multiplied map mistruths, which brings us to the fourth reason for Phantom Islands:
Mapmakers are lazy. Our favourite completely fictional island that clumsily sleepwalked its way onto factual maps is this mythical one, supposedly found off the Atlantic off the west coast of Ireland, called Brazil.
What?
Not to be confused with Brazil, which is also
Brazil.
found in the Atlantic off the west coast of Ireland. The two are in no way related, and the sameness of their names is a complete coincidence.
Brazil, as it's probably pronounced, is an enchanted island from Irish folklore, which, as legend has it, is forever cloaked in mist, but can be seen for just one day every 7 years, like that ITV documentary about those children who turned into adults.
It first turned up on this Portolan chart of 1325, when inaccuracies were a reasonably expected hazard of cartography.
And distinguishing myth from reality was a low priority.
Once Brazil
Not that one.
made the jump from fairy tale to map, it was only a matter of time before another map maker got the wrong end of the stick and stuck it on their map because they were too lazy to do their own research.
And that's exactly what happened in 1375, when Brazil
Not that one.
And they
turned
got
up on the
roasted,
Catalan
huh?
Atlas. And now that it was on two maps, that was as good as a fact for all future cartographers. And it only snowballed from there.
Getting lost,
How-
trick of the light, lack of context.
How long could you possibly put a fake island on a map and have it not be discovered? See, this is really close to Ireland, so you would easily be able to prove this is real. I would have checked it personally. If it's that close to Ireland, you could have done something with it.
Context and laziness are just
At
four
least
ways
established a
islands can
naval
be
base,
discovered.
maybe.
It goes without saying that there are dozens more, including icebergs, pumice rafts, dense fog, and dehydrated hallucinations.
So it's no wonder that through dozens of mistakes on hundreds of maps, the world was littered with Phantom Islands.
These days, Phantom Islands are merely amusing map anomalies, but not so long ago, for some sailors, Phantom Islands were a very serious nuisance. In 1909, Ernest Shackleton and his crew were on board the HMS Nimrod, making their way home after a failed attempt to
The HMS Nimrod! That's awesome. Who named it
reach the
that?
South Pole.
Looking at his map, Shackleton planned some much-needed rest stops between Sydney and South America.
And Emerald
Unfortunately,
Island
the
is
first
fake.
of these was Royal Island.
Which turned out to be a phantom island.
Luckily, the first of
Wait.
these
But that second one says Emerald Island, doesn't it? It says Emerald... Yeah, that's Emerald Island. That one was also fake, I think. They said that previously, didn't they? Maybe I'm
The first
wrong.
of these was Royal Island.
which turned out to be a phantom island.
Luckily, they had Emerald Island to look forward to next.
But, as discussed 5 minutes and 49 seconds ago, Emerald Island turned out
I guess
to be
I should have just waited a couple of
another
seconds.
phantom
Undaunted, the exhausted crew continued on to Nimrod Island.
It's also
island,
fake.
turned out to be another phantom island.
What the hell?
Only Doherty Island remaining, which
Turned out to be another phantom island, making this the greatest voyage of undiscovery in the history of exploration.
Every single one.
Thankfully, for anyone trying to sail from Sydney to South America nowadays,
If I was on that ship, I would be like, did we miss the island? Or does it not exist? Since they didn't have any tools to properly navigate, maybe they didn't even think the island was fake. Maybe they just thought they missed it by accident.
almost every phantom island ended up being undiscovered by the mid-20th century. But how did Sandy Island manage to keep appearing on Google Maps as late as 2012?
Oh yeah, I was going to tell you, sorry. It was down to the French. Sandy Island, if it did exist, would belong to and be the mapping responsibility of France, as it's in the region of French New Caledonia.
And they wanted it to be
existence
real
had been-
because they wanted it to be real because it increased their maritime zone or whatever it's called.
Doubt since the early 1900s.
So, in 1974, a French flying reconnaissance mission went to check their island out, and to their not surprise, certified that there was nothing there.
Which, incidentally, is the second time we've discussed France getting smaller as a result of a proper survey.
Having undiscovered their own territory, the French pulled out all the stops to tell everybody that there was less France in the world.
Fast forward to the 21st century, when Google created their digital maps with satellite view.
Satellite view is not created, as you might expect, by taking lots of photos, stitching them together and adding the map detail on top. It's far quicker, easier and more accurate to do it the other way around.
The pre-2012 edition used map data from the US National Imagery and Mapping Agency, data which had been digitized based on old maps that predated the French undiscovery.
So the satellites found sea, but their maps showed that there should be land. And that's why they added a big black smudge, meaning error.
Because most people use satellite view just to look at their own house,
Okay.
and this was a part of the world where the fish don't even have dial-up, this smudge went largely unnoticed.
Until 2012, when a curious Australian research ship decided
You know, I honestly assumed it would just be the French wanting to have more ocean for themselves. I'm not sure exactly how much it is, but I think it's like 12 miles of the coast belongs to you. Yeah, 12 nautical miles and an exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles. If that island doesn't exist, then technically their zone should shrink. I mean, it probably wouldn't even hurt their economy, but at the same time, it's less land, which makes France smaller.
to take a detour to check out the discrepancy once and for all. And when they got there on the 26th of November, they announced to the world,
no.
So even in the world of digital satellite maps, there are still parts of the world that remain mysterious, and I could still grow up to be an explorer?
No, because you haven't got a
No.
boat. It's all too easy to mock explorers who made silly mistakes, but before we let you go, consider this.
discovering land was
I don't think you can really mock those people. They did the best they could with the tools they had at the time, which was to say practically nothing. They had to just rely on their own memory, some crappy maps, which were mostly just wrong because no one could prove anything at the time. You can't really blame them for getting things wrong. I mean, eventually we got everything correct by correcting those mistakes. They did the best they could. Can't really blame them.
their job. They were paid to do it, and paid more the more they did it.
So even if Cook was in doubt about what he saw,
Could be driftwood.
he was incentivized to claim it was land for king and country.
Have you seen something, sir?
Yes. Land. Mark that down as land. Today, in 2024, the world map is completely perfect.
And we're certain that nothing will be discovered or undiscovered ever again, ever, ever.
Why did Brazil just disappear? That was a good video. This was actually worth watching. I might watch more of their videos after this. But yeah, like I said before, you can't really blame the explorers for getting things wrong. They did the best they could. The French island, like, what happened after that? Did they lose territory or something? Okay, so never mind what I said before. There is a chance that this sandy island, which didn't exist, actually did not give the French anything. Because for an island to gain territorial seas, EEZs, and continental shelves, they need to be capable of sustaining human habitation or economic life. At least that's what I found on the internet. So that island probably didn't really give the French anything, which is probably why they were like, yeah, it's fake, it doesn't exist. Well, anyway, like and subscribe, comment, you know, all of that. The link to my Discord server is down in the description below, so check that out if you want, and I will see you in the next video.